Hi, everybody. I'm Holly Celiano, and I have my co-host, Dr. Matthew Singard.
Holly,
Welcome.
it's such a pleasure to do this with you again. Thank you.
Thank you. So today we are going to talk about the future of medicine is not just about treating illness. It's about unlocking the body's innate ability to heal. And the medicine that we all have grown up with is treating an illness. It's never teaching us how to heal our body. And then a symptom presents, and instead of treating why is that symptom presenting, they give you a drug
Yes.
to just put a band-aid on it and mask whatever the root cause is. Future medicine is we teach ourselves to heal, and that's basically what you do in your practice. You're
Yes.
teaching your patients how to heal themselves.
Yes. So, this topic is the topic that I live my life by. And, what's really interesting is how many times in our life have we met people who have been faced with a serious illness? I know you have personally, and I know that we all know people who have. And when you made that switch in your life, that
Mhm.
that that light bulb came on where you said, it's not going to be the medications, the chemotherapy, the radiation that heals me. It has to start with me.
Yeah.
And I have to first identify the factors that were causing the illness. It's not the shock, oh my gosh, how this happened. I don't know. Well, let's treat it. You said to yourself, no, let me find the cause. So the cause always starts within us. It's those emotions that were eating us apart, right? It's feeling worthless, feeling invisible, unloved, unappreciated, unworthy, feeling as though you're alone in this. So, for this subject, you're an expert in this because you single-handedly healed yourself,
Yes.
right?
And it's not easy, especially, my whole life, you heard of cancer, and it was just, when I was growing up, it was unheard of. Like, very few people had it when I was a child. And it was scary when they got it. It was almost a death sentence back then.
Yeah.
Um, and that was like, oh my God, and then as I started growing up, more and more people were getting cancer. And it's just about everybody practically today has had
Yeah.
some form of cancer. It is
Yeah.
so prevalent. So it's learning not to see it as this horrible, scary death sentence. It is learning to say, how did I get here? How did
Yes.
I get to this place? What were the steps that led me to this? And yes, some things are environmental. Some things are, if you have high toxicity in the body from vaccines or, lead and mercury poisoning or other things, it suppresses your immune system. So,
Yes.
there are other causes besides just the emotional component that can
Yeah.
cause a disease. But then you start to detox. It's not just clearing the emotions, it's detoxing the body.
Yes. And also, Holly, what's interesting, just so for our listeners, so we could just get that factor out of the question, when we talk about, we've heard it from so many different people, but like Joe Dispenza would say, and Alan Lipton and Bruce Lipton and all these different authors that I've read. So they give time and time again. I'll give an example in one of their books. They talk about two brothers that worked at a chemical factory, and there was a huge, massive internal spill. And everybody who was exposed said that would probably mean 6 to 8 months and they'll all be dead. So there were brothers that worked there, and they were exposed at very high levels. They went to the company doctor, and the doctor said, "Yeah, give it about 8 months, you'll both be dead." So one brother died in 6 months. The other brother, 40 years later, is still alive. And when he was interviewed, the other brother who's still alive said, "I never believed that this would make me sick ever." He's like, "In fact, I went back to work the same day." So when we talk about those environmental, those toxins, the genetic, really the experts say maybe 3% of all diseases are from that category. The other 97% are self-induced from emotions.
And it's also the belief system. So in that story, the one brother believed the doctor because if the doctor said it, they take on that um, that diagnosis and they believe it, and then the body manifests
Yes.
what was said. The other brother was like, "Oh my gosh, there's no way. I don't believe that. That will never
Yes.
happen to me." So he
You know,
did adopt the belief system. And
absolutely. Yeah.
that's
And
where the
that's
belief systems are so key.
yeah, they're so key. And we talk about this a lot, especially conversations with God. It's like this formula is given to us in so many different writings. The formula is the thoughts we have, the words we say, and the things we do,
Mhm.
right? So when someone is saying, this is going to kill me, it's going to kill me, and another person saying, no, this is actually going to heal me, those are two different thoughts,
Absolutely.
right? So when you were going through your challenges, you change your internal dialogue. What did your internal dialogue sound like?
Um, I changed everything in my life. I changed my diet. I used
What
to
was your
be.
internal thoughts, your internal thinking?
So my internal thinking was, okay, I have this. I'm gonna find out why I have it, and I'm not gonna believe what the doctors tell me.
Right? You chose not to believe it.
No. And
Yeah.
but then I started changing everything. I'm like, well, let's get to the root cause. Why do I have this? And I was in a
Yes.
very toxic marriage at the time.
Yes.
And it was a result of that. I got divorced. I just did a clean slate on everything, changed
Yes.
everything in my life.
Yes. And that's the most important thing. You knew what to eliminate. You eliminated the source of the actual toxicity.
Yes. And then I
Yeah.
started doing a deep dive on my emotions
Yeah.
and did emotional clearing
Yes.
and got to the root cause of that. I must have done in the course of since I started this back in 2009, probably 70 emotional clearing processes.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And with each one, we get stronger and stronger and stronger, and it builds up this truth within inside us. So
Yes.
when we can change that internal dialogue, that even that subconscious, that sponsoring thought, the thought behind the thought, that would say you may put on a happy smile and everything, but if deep down someone's saying, I'm not good enough, or I'll never be enough, or I'll never be loved, or I'll never be as good as this person, when that's our internal dialogue, then the cells become that negativity.
Yes. That you mentioned thoughts, words, and deeds, our actions, our thoughts, what we're speaking.
Yes,
It all has an effect. We need to be really crystal clear on what that is because there's a vibration and a frequency to all of those. So
yes,
if you're speaking negative thoughts, or there's a lot of people that beat themselves up for saying something or doing something and they're really harsh on themselves,
yes,
that does something to you.
absolutely. It really does. And it's been measured. You can actually measure it. So a normal cell has a millivoltage of between 70 and 90. And they've taken people and they've measured their millivoltage as they're going through a panic attack or an anxiety attack, or as they're telling a story about how horrible they think they are or how worthless they think they are. And they've seen it go down from 70 millivolts all the way to like 25, in a matter of 30 minutes. I mean, that's how detrimental it really can be.
Right.
So it's incredible how we really are the power to heal ourselves, and we're the power to unheal ourselves.
hmm So the new medicine going forward, because not too many people are dialed in to what you doing the emotional clearing.
Hmm.
They're more dialed into traditional medicine. You go to a doctor, they give you a diagnosis. Here's a pill, here's a cream, take this. You don't feel better, come back. The new medicine is going to be, let's figure out what the root cause is.
Yes. Like I'll give you a perfect example. So like this happened a couple weeks ago. The patient comes in and she says to me, I don't know, for like the last, couple of months, I really just don't feel good. Something's wrong. I'm getting all these blood tests and medication and nothing's working. So I don't know what it is. So I said to this patient, everything is within us. So let's ask your body to show us where this starts. So when I'm doing the muscle testing, it brought me back to a date 2 years ago. And that exact date when it stopped, the patient said, I know exactly what that was. That's when I broke up with my significant other. And I said, okay, what was the strongest emotion you had in that relationship? Well, I felt like I was nothing. The person was a narcissist. I felt unloved, unappreciated, unworthy. Okay, great. So then we brought it back to the moment 2 months ago. And I said, why did it stop at 2 months ago? She said, oh my gosh, that's when I got into a fight with my current and my spouse. And this time it was all me. It was my fault. I said, so you're believing it's your fault. So they told me the story about what happened. And I got this person to really see that it wasn't her fault and it wasn't his fault. It was the way she was defining it. She was saying, well, because I said this and it triggered an argument, it's my fault. And I said, hold on a second, it's nobody's fault. It's just a learning experience. So she was putting the same undue stress on her in the new relationship, in the new argument, because of what she learned 2 years ago from the narcissistic relationship where that person was always putting her down. She immediately put herself down because she was taught that from that relationship time and time again, that it's her fault, she's not good enough. His happiness is all based on what she says to him and she does to him. So I got her to release all that. And in a matter of 8 minutes, she felt 100% better.
Wow.
So the new medicine is always within us, but it's the old programming that we don't know we're holding on to. If we're
Right.
in a horrible relationship for how many years were you married?
Uh, I was with him 23 years,
Yeah.
married.
Yeah. So think about how much work you had to do to stop that subliminal programming of
Mhm.
where he could have said, it's could have been better if you did this, or if you would have done this, maybe it would have been better, or I would have done it like that, or I really don't think you should have done that, or maybe you know, maybe if you did this, it'd be a lot better, or right? Never taking the blame, always your fault,
Mhm.
never good enough,
Yeah.
right? And 23 years of that.
Well,
So
then
that,
I had that also from growing up from my parents. So it was really
yeah.
most of my
So,
life.
so it's our entire existence.
Right.
Yet we have to change that programming that says, wait a minute, it's not my fault.
Right.
It's not. It's just a choice. And I don't choose to believe that anymore. It's not my fault.
Right.
Yeah. So it's with an intense and incredible gratitude for yourself, you could start to change all that programming.
Yes.
This is the first thing I want the listeners to know is it has to start with gratitude, right?
Mhm.
So Holly, so what other things did you do? So let's say gratitude is one of the things you did. Did you go into like self-love? What else did you do? Did you go into self-appreciation, self-care? You obviously were doing physical detoxes, mental detoxes. Were you starting to say affirmations to yourself? Like what other things were you doing?
All the above. I was doing affirmations. I changed my diet. I was just talking to myself. I was meditating. I would do self-care, go in nature, go for walks, do yoga, exercise, start moving the body and releasing anything stored in the body. And then I learned how to, if there's somebody negative or a negative situation, I just don't want to be around it. I would just remove myself from that.
Yeah, absolutely. It's making that conscious choice to remove
Yeah.
yourself.
Yeah.
Yes.
And it
So,
was
so
like, I love me enough that I don't want to subject myself to that anymore.
yes,
And, my friends list and all of that has really dwindled a lot because I refuse to be around toxic people. I'd
yes,
rather be alone than be
right,
around toxic people because
yeah,
it's damaging. I see how damaging it is.
yes. And that brings us to the next new form of medicine, if we're going to talk about this, is when you're alone, what's the best thing to do is meditate,
Mhm.
right? One of the most powerful healers to the body is meditating, because now what are we doing? We're going within ourself. We're not saying, well, this outside medicine is going to fix it, or this powder, or this pill, or this supplement. When you meditate, you're basically saying, okay, I'm going to step out of my body and turn around and look at myself. And now I am going to look at me with such love, and I'm going to get real, and I'm going to admit that I was putting myself down, putting everybody else first, making sure everybody was happy over my own happiness, and realizing that that does not serve me anymore. I was unable to say no. Now I'm willing to set boundaries and say no. So we can go in and meditate and realize the things that we didn't realize we were doing, because as children, we're taught not to say no,
Right.
right?
Do as you're
So,
told.
yeah, do as you're told. So now tell me, in your experience then, when you were going through your healing journey, how much meditation did you do? A lot?
A lot.
Yeah.
Yes.
So do you like guided meditations, self meditations? What do you like?
Do it all. It just depends on what you feel like doing at that moment. Sometimes I have gotten to a point where whatever I'm doing, I feel like I'm almost in a form of meditation all day
Yeah.
long
Mhm.
because to me, meditation is singular focus. So
Yes.
if you're cooking, just be fully present cooking. If
Yes.
you're cleaning or whatever it is, just be present doing what you're doing instead of having abstract thoughts all over the place where you're scattered and you're not focused.
Yes. Absolutely. Another healing modality that you and I have talked about many times is Ho'oponopono.
Hmm.
And the origin of Ho'oponopono, what got me into it was when I first heard the story of what Ho'oponopono had done for people. The one that stands out is with Dr. Hugh Len, and he's probably one of the most famous practitioners of Ho'oponopono, because he was working as a practitioner in Hawaii, and his good friend asked him to work at the hospital for the criminally insane in Hawaii. And it was 450 of the most dangerous inmates that had to be shackled and sedated just to go from one room to another. They could not keep people on staff. Nobody wanted to work there. It was so dangerous. They were so violent. So, at a last ditch effort, they hired Dr. Hugh Len, and he said, I'll do it under one condition. I will not step foot into a room with any of the inmates. I don't want anyone to know I'm working there. You're going to give me a file a day. I'm going to come into the hospital on the ground level, give me a private room, and I'm going to read the file, one file a day. And he said, everything is connected. So as I'm reading the file of this inmate, I'm going to read the life story of everything they went through, the horrors, the traumas, the abuse, the neglect, the physical, mental torture. As he was reading their stories, he would have feelings build up inside of him, feeling unloved, unappreciated, unworthy. And he would start to clear it out one by one, each feeling. And he would go within himself and he would do the I'm sorry, please forgive me, thank you, I love you. And it was deliberate, it was intense. With each phrase he said was stronger and stronger and stronger. So what was so powerful was that he had never met anyone. Nobody, no staff knew he was doing except that one person who hired him. Was that after 4 years, the entire hospital was able to shut down because everybody was released on good behavior.
Wow.
Every single inmate had gone from being violent to um, kind, able to hold conversations with people, never physically aggressive anymore, able to start meditating, listening to music, doing poetry. They had completely gone from being externally abusive to internally loving, and nobody knew what was going on. So that's the
That
power
is
of hope.
very powerful story. I mean, that's
Yes,
how powerful Ho'oponopono is.
yes.
Why don't you just, for the listeners that are not familiar with that, just give an example?
Okay, so let's say you're in a horrible relationship, and I were to say to you, Holly, every day you were in that horrible relationship, what would be the one emotion that was negative that would make you feel? It made you feel like how being in that relationship?
Worthless, unloved.
Okay, beautiful. So I would tell the person, close your eyes, and you're going to acknowledge yourself first. You're going to say silent. It's never said out loud. It's only said silently. So you would say right to your heart. I would say to you, imagine you're stepping out of your body, and now you're looking at the version of her who's in that relationship, who's being abused. Now you're going right to her, right to the version of you. You're putting your hand on her heart, and she puts her hand on your heart. And you say to her, to my highest, most divine self, because you're acknowledging how divine she is. And the first line is, I'm sorry. It goes like this: for whatever reason, I had to experience or take responsibility for the energy of ever feeling worthless. And then you add in everything else that would match with worthless: worthless, unappreciated, unworthy of being loved, invisible, neglected, dismissed, put down, small, whatever else someone felt. I would say to them, say whatever else you felt silently in your heart. And you say, for whatever reason, I had to experience that. You're talking right to that version of her. You say to her, I'm sorry. The second line is, please forgive me, because somewhere in my life, I had to learn that it was okay to be treated this way. Someone had to teach me it's okay for me to give my power away to somebody else. Somewhere I had to be treated that it's okay to make sure everyone's happy over my own happiness. Someone had to teach me to grin and bear it and just put up with it. Someone had to teach me that it's not important if I'm happy. Wherever I learned that from, parents, grandparents, ancestors, society, whoever taught me this growing up, I'm going to say, say right to her, please forgive me for holding on to those false beliefs. Then you're going to say to her, thank you. And you're going to imagine this cord of energy that was connecting you to the person, the spouse, everything that was filling you with that negativity, parents, whoever it may be. And you're going to visualize those cords of energy. You're going to assign a cord color, red, green, black, whatever you want. And you're going to visualize the most beautiful sword of love and light coming down and cutting those cords. And then you're going to imagine you're pulling those cords out and sending it to the light. And then we're going to clean and clear the energy. So you're going to thank yourself for cutting those cords and cleaning the energy around ever thinking or feeling worthless. Then you're going to thank yourself for showing you why you needed to experience this in your life. There's got to be a positive. So you're showing yourself the benefit of why you went through it, to show you that you are unconditionally loved. You're the source of the worth. You're the source of the love. You've always been unconditionally loved. It comes from you. You thank yourself for learning it. And then you say to her, I love you. And the most intense love you can ever imagine, you're going to put that into your heart. And that's the power of Ho'oponopono.
That's wonderful.
Yeah.
And
So,
the audience can do that for anything. If they have an illness or any disease, any pain, any emotional upset going
mhm.
on, just do this. You could do this. Dr. Singer just gave you the keys to the kingdom with this, to do this at home, and you can clear it. You can clear so much that you've held on to for so long, all day long. If it can heal people that are in a prison that are the most violent criminals in there, that had to be sedated and handcuffed and chained. Imagine what this can do, but that's what we do with our thoughts and emotions.
Yes.
We chain ourselves to our emotions.
Exactly said. So good. That's so perfect. We chain ourselves to that. Um, and I know as we're getting ready to wrap up, the last part of it is when we talk about healing, you said it so well in the beginning, Holly, about cleansing. So
Mhm.
let's just give them a few things. So like for example, when it comes to like cleansing in terms of physical cleansing, focus on healthy teas, stuff like rose hips or nettle leaf or ashwagandha, ginger. Um, I like to take ginger root and boil it for 20 minutes and then put in six organic rose hip tea bags and let it sit for about 6 hours and then strain it out and drink the water. And you drink about like 8 to 10 ounces a day. Or I like to make the liquid hydroxychloroquine, where I'll peel 4 grapefruits, 4 lemons. Sometimes I'll put in 2 limes, but it's the peel of it. You boil it, and then you basically same thing. And then I'll boil it. Once it starts boiling, I'll transfer it to a crock pot for 3 hours. And then when it's done, squeeze all the juice out of the peels, strain it into glass mason jars and drink about a half a shot glass twice a day. What else do you like for detoxing?
Pine needle tea is really good.
Mhm.
I what else do I take? I have like a whole cabinet full of different herbs, like loose herbs, and I make a combination of them. So there's, licorice root, and I do have rose hips in there. Turmeric is really good. There's, I don't know, I have probably 20 different loose herbs in
Yeah.
my cabinet to make teas
Mhm.
with. But, people can Google what to do for ordering teas to make at home, loose
Yeah.
teas.
Yeah. There's tons and tons of ideas. Other things I tell people for digestion, I'm a huge fan of onions and garlic and your root vegetables like beets, radishes, everything that comes from the ground, great for digestion. I like to do, garlic cleanses once a month where I'll eat about 15 to 20 cloves of garlic in one sitting, and I'll do that 3 days in a row. And then I'll lightly steam onions with in a pot with coconut oil, and I'll add in turmeric and cayenne. Um, simple things like that. Incredible for parasites and for viruses and bacterias. So, those I know. You know, there's tons of other things, but those are like some of
Yeah.
the bait. Yeah.
When you do those garlic cloves, does your wife have you go stay somewhere else?
Oh, absolutely. She yells at me every time I do that. It's you definitely stink. And sometimes I've done it on a Saturday and I'll be in my office on Monday and patients will be like, "Did somebody just have garlic?" And I'm like, "Oh no, it still smells." So, but yeah, it's potent, but it is powerful.
Right.
Yes. So, other things that you and I both know, like foot baths, are very
Yes.
powerful. And then other things that you and I both know of, the EE systems, extremely powerful. Red light therapy, laser. There's tons and tons of stuff out there.
There is.
Infrared saunas, so many good ideas. And then if anybody's a fan of people like Brian Artis, talks all about like the power of nicotine, how it's a tremendous healer. So there's things that we have been lied to for so many years that says stay away from, but are actually some of the healthiest things. So it's just a matter of, doing some exploring. There's so much information on the web, on social
Yes,
media. So
absolutely. But the biggest thing is your emotions.
always, always
Those are what really get you sick, and your
yes,
belief system.
correct, correct, 100%. Because you can go on a fast. Jesus fasted for 40 days.
Mhm.
But listen, if you don't change your thoughts, that's still the biggest toxicity. You have to
Absolutely.
change your thinking. So,
I
any
agree.
last words to wrap up?
It's going to be exciting where medicine changes going forward with Robert Kennedy in as the the new health advisor and see how that all transitions. And we're so in the infancy of this new um, administration that it will be exciting to see the medicine that evolves because the old way of doing medicine, people have woken up that it's killing you.
Yes.
It's not healing
Correct. 100%.
you. Yeah.
100%. And that's another podcast we can do because that's a whole nother topic which I could talk about, upcoming medicines, which are basically going to be all natural, other
Mhm.
things that they're setting through the pipeline. But yes, you're 100% right. So this is awesome.
Well, thank you. Have a great weekend, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.